That was a moment of reflection where I actually got to think about who I am. And God told me, you're a giant. You're this. And I said, no, God, you're wrong. I'm small. Peace. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome, family, to Tea Time Podcast by Byatiyaj. This is your self-help, spiritual podcast, uplifting topics we all love to avoid, but we definitely need to conquer. Tea time is your moment to pause, listen, and absorb what is soothing to you. I'm Byatiyaj, aka Tia, a certified holistic life coach, and this idea was sparked by my passion to help others discover their latent potential, purpose, and significance, especially if you are one who feels overlooked, alone, or forgotten. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. I see you and I feel you. Welcome to Tea Time Podcast. Enjoy the tea.
We all want those better days, better days, better days. Hoping for those better days, better days, better days. The time is now for better days, better days, better days. It's just the little things we know can make a beautiful change. That's why I'm happy that I came by train. Together we can create a meaningful change.
Peace. Assalamu alaikum. What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Tea Time Podcast. It's your girl, Byatiyaj, aka Tia, as you already know. And I wanted to start this episode out with a little bit of music because I enjoy music and I wanted to share the song Better Days by Craig David. It's just something about Craig David's voice that I enjoy. I never listened to a full album, but I saw this on YouTube and I knew I would like it because I do love his voice. But this song was particularly great. It's called Better Days, I Came by Train. And it's actually a song talking about saving the earth and combating the pollution and the gases and stuff that we put into the earth with transportation that we use with cars and all of that. So he's actually encouraging people to use and take the train. It ends with his music video is very pretty. I'll put a little clip in here, but it ends with the fact that trains create 70% less CO2 than cars, which is cool. You know, I live in Jersey, so we have a train system that's pretty good. Not really from where I live. However, of course, there's New York City right here, and I do agree that using a train would help to eliminate those gases that we don't need in our atmosphere. However, our train systems suck. You know, me having a child, I used to enjoy taking the train, and me having a child and everything now, I'm not doing it. I'm not getting on the rat-infested subway in New York City. I'm not getting on the cold platforms in New Jersey, waiting 30 minutes for a train if it decides to come or not. Nah, it's not happening. So, but I do want to share that positive message, and it actually fits the story that I have for you all today, because today's episode is about trees. Okay, so let's get into it. I have a story that I've been reflecting a lot on this experience, and I was actually in a meeting this weekend. And this meeting is a mind of collective. It's a collective of people who are visionaries, have a visionary mind about changing education for the betterment of humanity, particularly Black people, Black and brown people, just to help us to heal from the trauma that we go through, struggling with racism and the conditions of our communities as well. So in this meeting, we had an icebreaker question, and the facilitator asked, if you were a tree, what type of tree would you be? And I was like, wow, that's a great question. I love that because I love nature, and I don't know much about trees, but what instantly came to my mind, I thought it was called the California red oak tree, but it's actually called a sequoia tree. What actually came to my mind was a sequoia tree, a giant sequoia tree. And I'll put a picture in here if you've never seen a sequoia tree. It is beautiful. I've never seen them in person. Hopefully one day I will. But these trees are huge, literally huge. And there are forests of them. A California redwood is also another tree, but what I was thinking of was the sequoia tree. And these trees are absolutely magnificent. They're giant. They're like eye-catching. You can't miss them. They're that picture. If you've ever seen the picture of the car driving through a tree, that's a giant sequoia tree. Like, that's how beautiful and massive and amazing they are. And that was the tree that initially came into my mind when thinking of myself. Almost immediately after having that thought, I had the thought, but I'm not a giant. I'm not that big. I'm actually pretty small. Maybe I should be something that's more like me, like a willow tree. So when I gave my answer, I actually shared that I thought of a sequoia tree first, but I actually think a willow tree fits me more because a willow tree is more flexible. It's something that brings peace. It's a little peaceful, and it's nice with nature. The facilitator actually said a willow tree before me as well. So I also, that was a connecting point to connect with someone because I had a similar thought as them before they gave their answer. And as I'm telling my answer about the willow tree, I think that was true as well, but I realized I just minimized the crap out of myself. Like, I literally just said, I am not as big as what my initial thought of myself was. And that sat with me throughout the entire meeting, and I actually had to share with them and open up about that towards the end of the meeting because it didn't sit right with me what I did to myself. So I would like to speak about how we need to stop minimizing ourselves, who we are, what our potential is, what we bring, what our purpose is. We absolutely need to stop minimizing ourselves because we will stop ourselves from being purposeful in life. We will stop ourselves from fulfilling great things in life. And it's funny, we get all of these thoughts and ideas about how amazing and great we are, and our first inclination, somehow, it's a horrible habit, is to stop it. No, that's not me. Oh, you said I did this for you? I made you feel great? No, that's not me. No, that can't be attributed to me. Yes, it can. Like, it's what I kind of want to start on in reflection of this experience that I had was that in minimizing myself, it was an immediate thought. Like, I didn't see it as let me lower myself or let me minimize myself, but it came so naturally, I didn't even realize what I was doing in that instance. To me, I was just giving a more logical answer, a willow tree. Like, look at me. I'm small. I'm not that big. I'm a flexible person. I attract nature. I bloom. I attract people with my beauty from the inside and things like that. And to me, that was the logical answer until I started saying it and I realized I minimized myself because it was illogical in my mind for me to be a giant. Because in my head, I'm small. I'm not a giant. I'm not big. I'm not grand. I'm not eye-catching, something you have to look at. I'm not something that demands your respect or commands your respect, not demands, commands your respect in my initial thoughts about this. And it's like, when I actually reflected on this, I said, wow, what a bad habit I have to where I can't kind of compare myself to something that would command respect from other people. You know what I mean? I can't connect myself to something that is a giant and important in the world and rare in the world and something that stands with other giants as well. So I didn't like that. And I actually journaled, and I had to sit and think about, why do I do this? Why do I minimize myself? Why can I not be great when my mind tells me that I'm great? And in my spiritual connection, in my spiritual understanding, that wasn't just my mind that told me I was great and a giant and grand, but that's the God within me letting me know who I am. That was a moment of reflection where I actually got to think about who I am. And God told me, you're a giant. You're this. And I said, no, God, you're wrong. I'm small. I'm flexible. I'm more like other people. I'm not unique, you know? And this bad habit, I know I'm not the only one that has it. I've seen other people do it. I feel like certain people are taught to be that way, to where in our eyes it's conceited for you to talk about yourself in a grand way or speak about yourself in a great way with the things that you've done. And that just can't be true all the time. That's not simply conceit for you to know your greatness. For you to know your greatness is actually intelligence. For you to have knowledge of who you are is one of the greatest intelligences. And it's not for you to compare yourself to other people, because a sequoia tree is not the only grand tree. Like, it's in a forest of other giants. It's in a forest of other huge, grand, and amazing trees. So this grand thing can live in a space with other greatness, but it recognizes its greatness. It stands firm and tall in that, to where 2,000 years down the line, it's still living and growing in its greatness. It's not shrinking itself. It's not, trying to squeeze itself in and hide so nobody looks at it and sees it. But why do we do that? What is that bad habit that we've created for some reason, to where we think it's okay to minimize who we are? So for me, when I reflected on my history, oftentimes in my life, I grew up black, woman, Muslim. Like, I'm a black woman, I'm Muslim, and I grew up in environments that were not predominantly black. I grew up in environments that, of course, the United States of America, it's not predominantly Muslim, predominantly Christian ideals in society or pagan ideals in society. So especially in the schools I went in, I grew up in Christian schools, my opinion and my way of life was not accepted. It was unknown. It was weird. It was different. I was always on the outskirts. So as I was growing up, being the very shy girl who I was, I would always silence my opinions and silence my experience and my perspective to listen to other people. And this was a good thing, but it was also a bad thing, because I did not learn in those instances to speak up for myself. So I could be having a conversation with people, and I'm so caught up in making sure this person's opinion is heard and they feel heard, and I have an understanding of who they are, that I never shared my understanding of myself in some instances. So whereas I'm getting to know a lot of other people in different cultures and different types of thinking, people aren't necessarily getting to understand my thinking and what my culture is and who I am. And that was a habit that I think I continue to have until, I would honestly say, until college a little bit. And I would say until after graduating college and feeling so much frustration in the workplace, in my career being a teacher, with the other faculty. I felt a lot of frustration with them because, of course, I went in trying to be accepting, trying to be understanding, and I met these people who were so strong in the way that they did things in their department, the way that they did things in their school, that there was no room for me to add how I would want to, as a new teacher, as a new person in education who's had a whole bunch of ideas about the educational system, how I would want to function. So I felt tension, and then that was frustrating to me. And at the time, being 21, 22, first time in a adult workforce, I didn't know how to deal with those feelings. But that type of frustration made me want to speak out more. I started creating videos. I started saying things to, other people who I did not agree with. I would speak up more. I started creating videos with my thoughts. This eventually led to the podcast right here, to where I'm learning now to speak up. I'm learning now that my voice is important. My voice does reflect other people, and it's okay for me to be able to listen to other people and understand them while still standing strong and certifying who I am while I'm doing that, because that what makes something more genuine, authentic. If I'm just listening to you and I don't share with you me, that's not very genuine. There's only one side of the coin that's being examined, but there's heads and there's tails, and those might be opposite sides, but they're still on one coin. And when you have this inclination to kind of just quiet yourself down, a lot of times there's an incomplete coin then. What the relationship that you're building with that person you're speaking to is incomplete, because it's all about them. All you see is them. They may be in the mindset that, oh, you are right in step with me. We're the same person. But it's only because you're not sharing yourself in those moments, trying to connect with and trying to make that other person feel heard. That's the concept I've realized that I spend a lot of my life in, whereas I create these relationships and friendships, and I meet people and I just let them run the show. I let them run the show because I do enjoy getting to know other people, and I love getting to know other patterns of thoughts, because the way people think and the way that they digest knowledge is amazing to me. That's my nerd side. But I need to share my way as well. I can't just leave it up to that one person and they let them kind of take our friendship or take our relationship and run with it, because that's not really a friendship on my side. Not a full friendship to them, and it's not a friendship that helps to build me. So this is something that I've definitely been practicing to speak up and practicing to stop minimizing myself, because I believe this is a lifetime practice of minimizing myself that I've done up until this point, especially when it comes to my talents, especially when it comes to my skills. Like I create this podcast, but I don't promote it the way that I should. I enjoy singing. I'm pretty good at it, but most of you don't know that. I used to be pretty good at playing basketball, but that's something I wouldn't really practice because, what is that gonna do for me? When I could, instead of kind of minimizing my talents, I could practice them, build them, be stronger in who I am and my gifts and my talents to really honor the God inside of me. So after this reflection and after journaling about this sequoia tree, I made the commitment to myself to finally be the giant that I am. Stop minimizing the giant. And I want to strive to do that because, number one, it empowers the God in me. And if I empower the God in me, I'm going to empower the God in other people, in you. That's definitely a goal, because that's what I believe I'm meant to do with my life's work. Number two, it's going to help me to stop stifling my greatness. Likewise, I can't help other people be great if I'm stifling myself. I can't help my daughter to be the person that she's meant to be if I'm struggling and afraid to be who I'm supposed to be. So in order to inspire greatness in other people, I have to be great myself. I was just watching Steve Harvey on the Earn Your Leisure interview, the interview that he did, the live interview, the newer one. And it's like that man knows that he's great. He's humble at the same time, but he knows his greatness and he knows what he brings to the table. And I do believe it's a little easier for men to be able to do that, because they're more empowered to be strong and to be great. And for women, certain women, we get the message of, be quiet, It's okay. You'll get your chance. Slow down. You belong over here. And it's hard for us to stand in our greatness when we need to. There's a moment for, stepping to the side. And I believe it's important to allow men to stand up front sometimes and to be the leaders and to take charge. That's important to allow them to do. However, as women, we cannot stifle our greatness as we allow them to do that. As women, our role is not to be quiet. Our role is not to stay in the house. Our role is not to, just to be on the cusp of society, because we are the standard of a nation. If we're the standard of a nation, that means we're at the forefront of the nation. So in me being great, I can help my family to be great. I can help every person that I meet to be great. So I need to stop stifling my greatness. And number 3, what made me want to strive to be that giant sequoia tree, is to be able to stand with other giants. Something that I always say, and why I appreciate the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, is because I believe for him to be the Messiah in our midst today, with as representing the Honorable Elijah Muhammad right now. But the thing about Jesus, the thing about the Messiah is not that he's so great, but he is the example. He is the door. He is the way to God, for me to be the same thing as Jesus, for me to be the same thing as Messiah. So Minister Farrakhan doesn't teach us in the way to where we need to listen to him and he's all great and everything he says is just facts and you have to go with it the way that he says it. He teaches us knowledge so that we can become awakened within ourselves. So for me, I am a sequoia tree, and somewhere in that sequoia tree forest, there is a Farrakhan. And I may not be as grand as Farrakhan is right now, especially because he is an elder in the experience and the work he's put in for all of these years. However, that is who I'm growing into. Hopefully, God willing. That's who I am meant to be. I'm supposed to be as great as a Farrakhan. I'm supposed to be as great as a Steve Harvey. I'm supposed to be as great as a Sister Ava. I'm supposed to be as great as a Oprah. I'm supposed to be as great as a Viola Davis, as a Iyanla Van Zant. I'm supposed to be that great. And I might not be there yet, which is dope. Those are elders. Those are people with experience that I'm not trying to compare myself to in this moment, but I need to recognize that as me being in that species, right? Being in that species of a sequoia, I'm standing with other giants, which means I'm growing into how grand they are, which means that I'm grand in my little right, and I'm growing. I'm a tree. I'm alive. I'm continuing to grow. So I should always measure myself up. And this is not like a comparison thing, but I should measure myself up to the standard that I believe that I can be. And I should act like that right now, even without the experience. I should be who I believe myself to be, which is a giant, which is a Farrakhan, which is a God. So I hope this story that I shared and the ideas that I'm presenting are something that are meaningful to you. And if they are meaningful to you, I wanted to share some practical ways that I brainstormed to actually walk in this greatness, to be the giant, and to practice it so I get better and better at it each time. So one thing that I thought about, which is actually what inspired this podcast and inspired my thought process, was journal. So journaling is key to me because it gives me the space to connect with my thoughts. If I don't journal, I'm not really connecting and able to decipher what goes on in my head. It's kind of just like a mess. Like I see it as in my head, I'm looking at it now. It's just like a mess of thoughts all over the place, and it can be stressful. But when I take my pen and I actually write it out, I can organize, I can understand, I have the ability to think about myself, think about and reflect on what I've done. And then I can also think about the growth areas I want to grow in, as well as areas that I have grown in. So journaling for me is a great way for me to evaluate where I am now, who I believe myself to be, who I have been, and what I need to do in order to grow and continue to be a better person, because that's what life is about. Also, another practical way is to speak up and out. So this is important, especially nowadays, speaking up and speaking out about what you are passionate about. Somebody that I will champion, and I love how he spoke in a specific video clip, is Kyrie Irving and what he's going through. But the way that he spoke in one of his earlier interviews, it's just being passionate about what you believe. That's key. It doesn't matter if somebody else believes what you believe is wrong, but be passionate about it. Don't backstep on what you believe, or did you actually believe it? But I believe that comes with practice. But the way that Kyrie Irving spoke in one particular interview, he basically said that he did not do anything illegal posting a public link to a documentary, right? And he shared it. So he said, did I do anything illegal? Okay, I did not. Cool, I'm gonna move on. So a lot of times there can be controversy about what we are passionate about. I'm pretty sure things that require passion, there's always some type of controversy around it. But that doesn't mean that you're wrong. That doesn't mean that you need to backstep or you need to stifle your passion. And that's something I've had to learn as well. I don't need to stifle my passion about it. However, there is any controversy that I receive for things that I believe, I need to speak up. I need to speak out. I should just share my practical thoughts about it. Like this podcast. That's what I do in the podcast. This is what I believe. This is it. That's it. If you don't like it, it is not for you. If you do enjoy it, thank you for supporting me. I appreciate it. But I think that there is something key about speaking up and speaking out. It makes you powerful. It makes you to actually figure out how deep your belief or how deep your passion in something actually is as well. So it's an important, I was watching The Great Debaters too, like The Great Debaters. It's important to just be able to speak and converse and receive conflict and, give a counter about certain things, because that allows us, number one, have communication, which is great for both sides. Number two, it allows the person who is speaking to really dig deep It allows the person who is speaking to really dig deep and to evaluate what their belief actually is, how deeply they go with it, whether or not it's a real belief of theirs or just a thought that they had, etc. So practical ways for you to be great and you to stand in your giantness and your greatness and magnificence is to, number one, journal. Number two, speak up and speak out about what you're passionate about. Number three, reflect and share with others in person and on posts. So of course we're social media heavy nowadays, but there does need to be a lot more in-person interaction to have conversations. This is similar to the last point I gave, that when you're in conversation and when you're able to actually vocalize yourself, that builds you up. That makes you more powerful. For example, Martin Luther King Jr., if he never gave speeches, if he never, whatever ghostwriters he had, if Martin Luther King Jr. never spoke out or Malcolm X never spoke out, then they would not be who they are in history right now. We would know nothing about them. So when we stifle ourselves, we stifle our greatness. Like, we literally stifle the impact we can make on others in history. So I definitely think it's important to reflect and share with others in person as well as on social media nowadays about what you're thinking. I used to do that all the time. In Baltimore, I used to drive maybe about 25 minutes to work in the mornings, and I always think while I'm driving, and I would just record what I was thinking about, whether it was about a lecture, whether it was about an experience or something in my life that happened that impacted me. I would just share it in a video, put some music behind it because I'm a music head, and people really enjoy that, and I need to do it more often as well. But of course, I created a podcast out of that. So just sharing yourself, reflecting. You never know who you can touch. You never know how you're building yourself up as well by doing that. Another way, practical way for you to stand in your magnificence is to study so that you are prepped with knowledge, right? So studying is key. I enjoy studying. I typically do it in forms of reading. Right now, I'm in this process of like rereading a lot of books I've already read, and also reading the study guides. Anyone can get a study guide. Self-improvement is the basis for community development. And these are study guides written by Dr. Sister Ava Muhammad. May Allah be pleased with her. And they are a bunch of the minister's lectures, the minister's words, and us, analyzing them as well as the scriptures in order to help us think about ourselves and to improve ourselves in the way that we function. Because in the Nation of Islam, we believe that when you improve yourself, you improve the condition of your nation, your neighborhood, your community, your people. So these study guides are definitely key, but this is a way that I study as well nowadays. I actually study the study guides. I see their importance nowadays. But when you study and when you build your library of knowledge, when you build the connections that you can make to certain ideas and realities of the world, then it makes you a more confident person. It makes you somebody that's more prepared to speak about what they know or speak about what they believe is true. It gives us more truths to connect with in the world. And that, I believe, that makes us a more a world citizen in a way, right? The more that I know about myself, the more that I know about different topics in history, different topics in language, different topics in culture, that makes me a better citizen of the world. That makes me a better human. And I think that's definitely key to study. Even if you're not in school, just study, read, pick up a book that has a cute cover. Like you could study like the sequoia tree. After my experience, I went and studied the sequoia tree and studied their environment and studied what makes them so grand and magnificent. Did you know, I think one of them weighs, the biggest one that they found weighs 4 million, I believe, pounds. Like that tree weighs 4 million pounds. That's wild. But yeah, so studying is definitely key. And another practical way for us to stand in our greatness is to stop comparing. Like I said, with the giant sequoias, they are all giants. That one tree is not worried about another tree because it understands that they're one of the same species. So if I see myself as a giant, or if I see someone else as a giant, they're a reflection of me. I'm a reflection of them. So we don't need to compare each other. We're all living in our roots are planted in different areas, right? We all have the sustenance we need to continue to grow. So there's no need to compare with how I'm growing with how someone else is growing. No need to compare with your height versus my height. There's no need for that because we're all giants. And when we view people in that way, that competition that takes us out of our greatness begins to kind of subside and go away. Another practical way, I have 2 more, is to use my experience to inform the present. This is very key. We often do not reflect on our lives. We do not reflect on what we've been through versus who and what we are right now. And that's so key because when we dig into our experience, just like in a resume, if we could put our life on a resume and actually review it and look over it, we will be amazed at what we've accomplished in life. And we would know what to bring forward or to not use at the moment in order to deal with the things in our present. That's another reason why I journal. That has been so key to me, to just reflect on my experience and how that can help to inform my present. Because there is nothing like using your own knowledge and your own mind to get through challenges or to even know how to accept your greatness in the moment. So practical ways to be a giant that I've listed so far are to journal, speak up, reflect and share, study, stop comparing, use experience. And the last thing I will share is meditate and have a wellness practice. That is so key, because how can you have the mind to even do the other things that I shared if you do not have your own wellness practice, if you are not well in your mind, if you're not well in your soul? And this is key, because a lot of times we are blocked, right? Because we don't know how to tap into that greatness. I've experienced that as well. When you're blocked, when I'm stressed out about things going on in the house or stressed out about finances, I can't tap in to the God within me because I'm worried about all of this stuff that maybe not even that relevant. You know what I mean? But if I was practicing my prayers and practicing my meditation the way that I should, then I would be able to get rid of those blockages and have a straight path to the God within me that actually helps me to resolve the stressors that I have in my life. So those are the practical ways that I thought about. I hope that that is something that is meaningful to you. That's something that will encourage you to be that giant sequoia tree. Don't ever minimize yourself. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with being a willow tree. I really enjoyed my answer for the willow tree as well. However, I can't ignore the fact that my first thought was this giant, magnificent, amazing sequoia tree. And I minimized myself and I literally said, no, I'm not that big. I have to be a willow tree. So that for me was an issue. That's what I hope I've addressed in sharing this with you all. I hope that I've encouraged and inspired all of you who are listening to be that giant, to be great in who you are. Even if you're a great willow tree, you know, you're the best willow tree around. I hope I've inspired you, however you view yourself, to actually be that. To stop making yourself smaller than who you are, because we are all great. We are all purposeful. We are all important. And when we actually know and live that, we make an impact on history. Whether or not we're written about in history books, we make an impact. And the impact that we're supposed to make is critical to the changing and the bettering of this world. So once we know that about ourselves, once we begin to be the great person we're supposed to be, once we begin to be the great human, and the great world citizen, it's over. All of our problems, that's what we will minimize. When we can be comfortable with our magnificence, all of our problems that we have in life, they are minute. They are small. They are something we already have a practice as to how to deal with. Not that they won't affect us, they will. But we already know how to deal with that effect. We already know how to conquer it. We already know how to jump over that hurdle. So I just want to encourage you to be giants, to live in your greatness. I do also want to leave a little clip about a sequoia tree. So I hope you enjoy that.
General Sherman. He is a behemoth. With a base diameter of 36.5 feet, this monster is 52,500 cubic feet and weighs in at 4 million pounds. He is the most massive single living tree in the entire world. The most massive one, period. He also hits the height chart at 275 feet. So, I mean, he's pretty tall too.
Thank you all for listening to this episode of Tea Time Podcast. I appreciate you, all of my beautiful trees, all of my beautiful flowers, however you view yourself. I hope that you are blessed. I hope that you go with light. I hope that you go with peace. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Please share with other people my podcast. Please support in any way that you can. You can always go to anchor.fm/teatimepodcast if you would like to actually subscribe and help in that way. And of course, I will be here next Tuesday. See you. Peace.